So Mars,
I got it.
Wemby, where would you put him?
Above Trae Young.
Above Trae Young. So you would have him at.
Shut the hell up. You don't watch the Sacramento Kings. Shut the hell up. You're an Orlando Magic fan. You do not watch the Sacramento Kings. I actually watch the Sacramento Kings. I watch Keegan Murray. I watch Ellis. And I watch
Keegan Murray's a better defender than De'Aaron. Sorry. But yeah, I'd have he might be better than Bam. I'm willing to
shut the hell
that
up.
Group of players from 15 to 19, that's where I would have Wemby. I think for some reason, being one of the best defenders in the sport doesn't get enough value, especially when he's as good as he is offensively, especially. And it's not if I was projecting, I would put him in the top 10. I just think offensively, what we saw the last 4 months of the year, so January to April, when he really leveled up his playmaking, when he moved to the 5 full time, when he became better in the pick and roll, when he stopped taking as many mid-range pull-ups, his game just got overall more efficient. His decision-making got better. One of the best transition players in the league. He's shooting like 40% on pull-up threes. And the fact that he made the Spurs look competent when he was out there on the floor, especially that second half of the season, that means something to me.
How many threes are we taking, Mars, when those pull-up threes? How many threes are you getting from him?
Maybe 1 or 2 a game. I don't know. 7-4. He's shooting 7-4. He shot 42% on pull-up threes. I could find how many he shot, but you 7-4 doing that, that's ridiculous. But yeah, a lot of it's defensive value, but a lot of it's defensive value for Bam, a lot of it's defensive value for Rudy. I just think we overstate I said this similarly to Paolo, but just in general, I think we overstate the value of like the best offensive player on mediocre or bad offensive teams. I think being an elite defender is more valuable than being the best offensive player on a bad offensive team. Personally.
Somebody got to score on a bad offense. Somebody got to get the buckets on a bad offensive team, and it's a lot of times empty. That's why y'all dudes talk about Kevin Love the way y'all do. That's why y'all dudes talk about him the way you do. So,
Chill. K-Love was nice though, and he would have been. He could have played a bigger role even on the Cavs. He just happened to play next to 2 of the more talented and gifted offensive players.
How much more of a bigger role could he have played, Bron?
Well, I'm saying, like, you're playing next to Kyrie Irving.
He could have given more touches in where he was comfortable instead of just being a pick and pop guy.
He could have been a post-up guy, too, for the Cavs. He could have did a whole lot more things.
He was almost a 20-10 guy with them.
I get that, Chill. I'm saying,
like, third guy, by the way.
And the Timberwolves weren't a bad offensive team, by the way.
They weren't.
They just weren't a playoff, but they weren't bad.
Hey, Chill, what do you think about Kevin Love? You said that as if you feel like Kevin Love is, like, overrated.
It was empty.
What music is it? Is it good?
No, it was something else. But do you think Kevin Love is overrated? Is that why you were saying what you were saying about Kevin Love?
No, I said that it was empty what he was doing up there. Somebody got to lead a bad team in scoring. That's all I said. No,
they were a top 10 offense. I mean, they just missed the playoff, but they won 40 games. Like 40 games ain't a bad team. But with Wemby, with Bam, with Rudy, Rudy is like a main one because he's so bad offensively that I think people.
That's what I said.
Yeah, like for me, Rudy is not better than Wemby in large part because even though I think Rudy probably is the better defender, Wemby is so much better offensively that there's a noticeable gap.
That's where the separator is with you.
Yeah, that's
what the separator is with me. And Swiper lost his damn mind.
Yeah, because they start talking about
Wemby and Gobert. Yeah,
like I'm fine. Rudy to me is the best. Yeah, Rudy to me is the better defender as of last season, as of what I've seen. I think Wemby will be better in time, but right now I think Rudy's the better defender. But the offensive gap is so large where one is, I'm not going to call him a negative because there is some value to what he does. But Wemby is so superior to him offensively that I'm going to give him the edge. But Bam Adebayo is another one who I think gets underrated. Like, everyone acknowledges he's one of the 5 best defenders in the sport. But then when it's time to say he's one of the 15 best players in the sport, everyone hesitates. And it's like,
is he better than Jaylen Brown?
I think the conversation should be had.
That's a toss-up.
But like, I feel like if you make that a conversation because of how good Jaylen Brown is offensively or how good people deem him to be, some people are not going to appreciate, like, want to have that conversation. I'm talking about outside of the sphere of player's choice. Sometimes I get blinded by, like, how different the player's choice viewpoint is to the outside world. Like, a lot of the stuff we say or I say up here gets accepted. The broader scheme of basketball conversations is seen as crazy. So, like, Bam Adebayo in the broader scheme of things, I don't think gets enough respect for how good of a player he is because people just, I think, overvalue individual offensive players more than I think
his eye test sucks. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what you're looking for. I mean, he makes mid-range jumpers. A lot of people seem to like that, but when it's Bam, it doesn't apply. But I just think Wemby, Bam, Rudy Gobert, they get underappreciated, and I think like a lot of one-way guys or lesser defenders who aren't of the elite offensively get overstated. Paolo Banchero being one of them. If you're not one of the elite offensive players, and you're a neutral or a slight positive defensively, I don't think you're automatically over someone who's the elite defensively and lesser offensively. I don't think Paolo is just definitively better than Evan Mobley. And I don't think that should be seen as crazy to say that. But because of the larger offensive gap, people just won't even entertain that as a conversation when Evan Mobley is really, really good defensively and still provides offensive value.
Here's part of the thing for that, though, Mars. Part of the thing is, and I understand completely what you're saying. Part of the thing is Paolo is a number 1 and Evan is a number 3. Yeah, sometimes a number 4. I say number 3.
But number 1 is only an offensive thing.
No, I get what you're saying, but this is people equate this into where they put people. That's the reason why Bam gets put so low, because it's like, Bam, you're a number 2. Yeah, you are the best defender on that team, but you're a number 2. So people use that to dock you.
And I think that's wrong. But I understand what you're saying. People value a number 1 over a number 2 damn near all the time, unless you got a Kevin Durant, Steph Curry situation. But like, or KD, Devin Booker. But like most of the time, people are gonna be like, this guy's the number 1, this guy's the number 2, therefore number 1 better than number 2. But then it's like, does that make Cade better than Bam because he's the number 1 on his team?
No, it doesn't.
But then it'll be like, oh, but they don't win enough. Paolo led his team to the playoffs. Right. But then if I dare to mention the fact that the Magic were worse with Paolo on the floor than without him, I'm the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think Paolo was the sole cause of their success. But when you're the number 1 option on a team that goes to the playoffs, you get given the lion's share of the credit, which I don't think is right all of the time. Sometimes I think it's actually valid. Some guy is doing a heavy burden. And that
like what Giannis did in 21?
In the postseason?
Mm-hmm. Or like what Joker did in 23?
I think Jamal Murray deserves more credit than he gets, and their defense deserves more credit than it gets. But that's more... They obviously deserve more credit than what I think Paolo deserves, or Anthony Edwards deserves, or I'm trying to think of other guys who I don't get called a hater of that will make it seem more valid. But like, I just feel like people overstate the value of the number 1 option, and I think it's not always black and white of number 1 better than number 2, personally. And I also think being a number 1 option doesn't just mean you're the number 1 offensive player. I think you can be the best player in the team and be the best defender and not be the best offensive player. I think that happens more often than people care to admit. KG in Boston, for example, I think was the best player on the team, but I don't think he was their best or their go-to offensive player. But he was still better than Paul Pierce to me, which some people can disagree, that's fine. But I think he was better than Paul Pierce. So I just think the number 1 option thing gets overstated a lot of the time, especially when a team is not good offensively. I think that's what really confuses me. Like, the Magic were just a bad offense last year. So how much credit are we going to give to their best offensive player when they were successful because they were the number 2 defense in basketball? And respectfully, he was probably their worst defender in their starting 5.
Yeah, we talked about that before too, but Mars, I don't know if it's more with the worst teams or even the better teams, because it's like a lot of times, like you get with like KD and D Book, and sometimes now with JT and JB too, like it just kind of gets confusing to when we're having a conversation like, oh, well, that's the number 1 guy, and you don't really know if they're saying like, are you saying that's the best player, or are you saying that's the guy that's going to shoot the most shots? Like even with Kyrie and Luka, sometimes I guess I don't know, it's weird, but
it is 1As and 1Bs though.
So where we are with Wemby, right? Where we are with Wemby, we're projecting at the end of the season. Where do you project Wemby to be, Mars?
Top 10.
Yeah,
you think 10. He's going to?
I said 10 before Mars did, so that's my take.
So you think he's going to be a top 10 player? That means San Antonio is going to be a lot better.
No,
it will be, but
but this is where it comes down to. Once again, we're applying all the credit to Wemby. Wemby doesn't control how good the Spurs are. He can help, but Wemby being a top 10 player doesn't mean the Spurs are going to be a lot better than they were last year. The West is a lot better, so there's just better teams for them to have to beat. So their record might not improve that much, and B, their team just isn't that good. So Wemby improving doesn't mean the Spurs are going to go from 22 wins to 38, no matter how much better he gets, because there's only so much he can control within the game. He last year was one of the best defenders in the sport, and he only made them decent on defense. because they had horrible defenders around him. And when he was off the floor, they were egregious.
Yes.
There's only a certain level one player can get a team to by himself. Then that's why I say it's a team sport. Coaching, personnel around you, fit, all of those things play into it. Wemby can be as good as he wants. If Keldon Johnson's still playing 28 minutes a game, they're not going to be very good. No disrespect to Keldon. No, full disrespect to Keldon Johnson. He's just not good. So if those guys are playing a lot, they're just not going to be a very good team. If Chris Paul's hurt, they're just not going to be a very good team. If Trey Jones still can't space the floor, they're not going to be a very good team. Like, they were having to run inverted pick and rolls with Trey Jones as a roller because he can't space the floor. Like, the amount of creativity they're having to implement on offense, credit to Pop and to Wemby's skill set. But that's what you have to do when you have the lack of personnel that the Spurs have. The Spurs just aren't, and Devin Vassell's missing the start of the season. The Spurs just aren't built to be a good team, no matter how good Wemby becomes. So, like, even if the Spurs win 26 games, but Wemby is a top 10 level player, I'm going to still say that, regardless of the fact that they're going to win 26 games. I don't think how good your team is indicative of how good you are. Now, I think there's situations where a great player can elevate a team to a certain level, but I don't think just necessarily being able to floor raise a bad team makes you better than someone else. Some guys are
supposed
to raise the level.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Mars. Like that was exactly my point. The idea, sure, there is only so much you can do, and for a team to like the San Antonio Spurs to win 22 games last year, to be as bad as they were, and they were definitely a difficult watch. But for them to, add to their win total by 15 games. I'd like to think that that's a pretty big deal because we did the same thing with James, where the Cleveland Cavs didn't make the playoffs. He was a top 10 player going into the next season, and they didn't make the playoffs, and he raised that team 15 games. So I can appreciate
that with the Rockets too.
I can definitely appreciate him jumping spots. Now, I think that the Spurs, even if they aren't a playoff team, they are going to be better. If you're talking about him being talking about him being a top 10 player, that means that he's going to have to be significantly better in order for them to do that. Because if we're talking about plus 15 wins, that's a significant jump. Like plus 5 wins, that's not enough. Mark.
There's not really.
I'm not expecting plus 15 wins. Though.
Yeah, there's only. I'll just be clear here.
Yeah,
I think in the last 15 years, there's maybe only 3 or 4 players, like seasons, to have added like 15 wins. So like. I'm not expecting Wemby to have an all-time great season, but I also want to say this: LeBron and AD are top 10 players. We don't expect anything from them. Nothing.
Who don't expect nothing from them?
I mean, people just expect and then get disappointed.
Yeah, no one thinks they're going to be like a top 4 team. They don't think they're making it past the second round of the playoffs. If they do, they might get to Western Conference Finals. What do you
people expect that and then get disappointed when it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
what happens every single year.
But I'm saying that's
AD and LeBron.
Yeah, people need to realize that.
They're not going to carry them.
It's on more than that.
The fact that they're being top 10.
3 straight years now, that's been the same.
No, listen to me. Listen to what I'm saying, though. Listen to what I'm saying. They played that year, even when that happened, a very flawed and hampered Memphis team, which I still give them credit for winning. They won. They played a very flawed Warriors team. And then as soon as they played a team that didn't have said flaws.
They were too big for the Warriors, though. That's just really what it is. They just too big for
the Warriors didn't have enough size.
It was good matchups, but that's the playoffs.
It was a really good matchup.
That's the playoffs, though.
Yeah, that's the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, but this was 2 years ago when LeBron turned 38, not 40. He's going to turn 40 this year. AD is going to play. Hopefully he plays 79 games again. That would be great. But we're not expecting in this panel, I don't think, that they're going to be contending for the West, despite having 2 top 10 players.
It's the player choice way. Yeah, them boys don't get it started. The player choice way. Y'all the player choice way. Come and switch lanes into the player choice way.